Hey, we're
Hey,
here.
what's up?
Hi, everyone. Tashmica, the Executive Director of the Firecracker Foundation. We are continuing our conversation about defunding the police. So today I have my friend, my comrade, Ozay Moore from All of the Above Hip Hop. And I wanted to bring him on so that we could continue our conversation about what it means to defund the police, how it feels when we first hear those words, and what are the implications for our community. And so Ozay works with youth, but I'm going to let him tell you what he does and how important all the above hip hop is in our organization. So Ozay, will you please introduce yourself to everybody at the Firecracker Foundation?
What's up, people, friends, comrades, community members? My name is Ozay Moore, the Executive Director for All the Above Hip Hop Academy. I am a transplant to Lansing, Michigan, originally from Seattle. Been here for about 15 years. So Seattle's a complete different place, and so is Lansing. So I'm here, and this is home. But we've been doing this work for probably about the last 9 years. We became a official 501c3 nonprofit organization about 3 years ago. But yeah, essentially mentor youth through hip hop culture. You know, so we it's one part academic, one part community building, one part youth development. Like I said, community development, economic development. There's all these different pieces. So part of the work we do is connecting the dots to pulling the best and giving our youth the opportunity to be their best, giving them some guidance and tutelage and some real mentoring in hip hop culture, one in which not all of us were afforded. And so we see the value in it, opposed to griping and complaining from the older generation, not understanding the younger generation, creating dialogue and spaces for the youth and the elders to be able to really engage and build those bridges and understand each other and learn from each other and provide resources to each other. So really, in the spirit of the griot, keeping the history intact, telling the story of the history, keeping the language together, and really being intentional about building community from just coming into the world to getting ready to exit out. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do. And yeah, Tashmica's the homie, and she was like, "Hey, you want to come and talk?" I was like, "Absolutely, I like talking about her anyway. So let's rap."
Let's do it. So,
Yep.
full disclosure, my kiddo, my oldest child, Isaiah, took beat making classes with All the Above Hip Hop.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's dope too.
every now and again, I will find him at his laptop mixing beats, talking about when we talk about economic development, dreaming about what it would mean to be a producer, offering producing services to his homeboys who are making their own music. Like,
There you go.
just opening up opportunities. Who knows? Maybe this will be a hobby. Who knows what's going to
Mm-hmm.
be created? But what's really important for our children is planting those seeds and letting them participate in things that kind of give them a vision of the future.
Mm-hmm.
So we love that at our house. And so all of you who are out here trying to support Black-led organizations, please visit All the Above Hip Hop's website, make a donation, make a contribution. Support them as much as you've been supporting us, because their work is very valuable. And I've said this to Ozay probably more times than he needs to hear it, but All the Above Hip Hop is a prevention program. When you pour good things into children
Mm-hmm.
and you give them good relationships with adults who are safe and healthy, you are preventing abuse. And so I really want y'all to support All the Above Hip Hop if you get the chance.
Thank you.
Yeah, do it.
Tash?
Like them on Facebook.
Yeah.
Do what you can do to support them. So I wanted to have this conversation with you specifically as someone who works with youth and a lot of Black kids. What did you, when you first heard the words, speaking of kids, can I help you with something?
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Okay,
Who,
parenting
who is
during a
who is that? Who
pandemic.
is that with? Who's that
That
with?
was Levi.
Hey Levi, what's up?
When you first heard the words defund the police, how did that, what did that make you feel like? And what was your first response?
My first response is always like, I need more information. Like, I think we've had conversations like, okay,
Basically, that.
what am I missing? What do I need to know because I agree with the notion.
Sorry, Ozay. I'm
No,
on a call,
good.
baby. I can't talk right now. I love you. Sorry. Okay, please continue.
I think I have to go back a step, because by the time I heard defund the police, it had registered that, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's talk about how. The first radical notion I had, though, was, end all prisons, or abolish the police. Mm-hmm. Which in those contexts is like, give me more information. Not that I'm opposed, just help me understand. But it was weird, because as soon as you start hearing these things, you go inward and you start thinking about safety and what safety means, and at whose hands am I entrusting my safety with, and can I trust those hands? And are we really safe? If that, and so it kind of puts this framework, and who's safe, who's benefiting most from, a police force with the budget like we see in Lansing, who's really benefiting from that, and who's feeling safe because of that. And if those dollars equated to safety, you wouldn't hear the community cry out the way it does to say, that's ridiculous. Why do they have so much money? Where's the money for our youth programs? Where's the money for our music programs? Where's our money for the prevention programs to make it so you don't justify the idea of having this robust budget to do what? Protect and serve, police, harass, kill. What is it? What is money going to? Nice cars, So anyway, when I first heard defund the police, I was like, hell yeah, let's talk about it. And since then, just researching different models in different cities and communities, and looking no further than Holt or DeWitt. Like, what does a defunded police look? It looks like the suburbs, really. At the end of the day, where resources are plentiful, where the schools are, up to snuff, and new books, new this, new that, iPads for every kid, all of these things, the resources in the community to keep people out of trouble, to have stuff to do. It looks a lot like our neighboring suburbs, So anyway, that's my 2 cents where I'm at now. But yeah, we're just in the thick of it. We're in the thick of it. And
yeah. I mean, I love your reflection on what is safety, who gets to be safe, what keeps us safe. And I feel like that is something that a lot of people are thinking through and reflecting on their utilization of police as a safety force, and like how does that actually create safety? And the New York Times released, I believe it was the New York Times. We posted it yesterday, but there's an article that says the title is how do the police spend their time? And in this article, it researched 10 different organizations or law enforcement departments from across the country, and 1%, less than 1% were serious violent crimes that they were responding to. And the rest was a myriad of other things, but less than 1%. So when I was thinking about that, I'm like, and some of these are law enforcement departments in much bigger cities than ours. So like San Diego was one of them, right? And so Lansing is not San Diego. Right. Like when we're thinking about population and the challenges and things like that. So for Lansing to have a police department that has 30% of our overall city budget, I was just like, how is that? And I want to know more. Like I'm with you too. I want more information. I want to know, what are we responding to in Lansing? Where is the transparency around what those calls are, and what kinds of ways can we create safety in our communities that doesn't involve a budget, a robust budget that they don't actually need.
Yeah. It's just wild. You look at those numbers and these last conversations with city council, and you're just like, man, it really does reflect a certain disposition and belief about the community. You know what I mean? Like if you create scenarios in which you therefore justify having to really, really, I don't know, strengthen the measures you go to try to policing, protecting, and serving whatever, or making that environment safe. What does it say about those communities? That it's an unsafe community, but why is it unsafe? Like, we're never getting to that part. And why does it feel so unsafe? And what contributed to that? So it seems like the system has these cogs in place that where, you know, poverty, the issues that arise out of poverty play into justifying the over policing that plays into you know, the prison industrial complex that plays into all of that, you know, and
it's all connected. It's all connected.
And you can just trace it all the way back to the emancipation and slavery.
Right.
I mean,
it just keeps going and going and going.
You know, and it self-perpetuated, like it fuels itself. The system just it feeds off of our consumption, our fear, our systemic racism and prejudice, and unless folks are talking about dismantling that and coming up with tactics to really address it, and it's so bad, Tashmica. Like, I was driving through a neighborhood the other day, and I'm just putting this out there, but it's sad when your American flag goes up in the air, right? And you're a suspect of it. If I'm driving through a neighborhood where there's nothing but American flags up everywhere, I get nervous because I'm saying, what are you saying by that? What do you like? It's almost as if you were flying a Confederate flag at this point to me, because what it says to me is
same way.
What it says to me is, let's just all get along and make America great again. Like, let's just all get along. It's like, no, we can't just get along because you want us to get along under the context of us not being equal and having and not dismantling a system that is not built to support Black and brown folks, Black people specifically. You want us to just allow that to be what it is and to be able to say, well, that's just how it is, and let's blow up fireworks and eat hot dogs and have a good time again. You know,
my gosh, that is, you know, it's not something that I've actually I don't even know if I've said this aloud to anybody, but I wrote an article years ago about the Confederate flag, because I had taken my children down south for vacation. We went down to Tennessee, and there's like a highway.
Big joint. Like, welcome to Tennessee.
They're everywhere, right? As soon as you get past, I mean, there are a lot up here, but when you get to the south, they are really they are in roadside stalls, like they are hanging in people's, I mean, it's just everywhere. And we actually, because I'm such a history buff, I love all things history. I had downloaded this app, and my kids don't enjoy it, but it's just who we are. It's who I am, so that's who they are too. But I had downloaded all these like spots that we could stop at, and there was the oldest. It was like an Confederate like graveyard. I can't remember the context of why we went, but it was like an old graveyard, but they had like a Confederate section that had honored these Confederate soldiers, and it was like the Daughters of the Confederacy had pulled this little spot together, and there was even like a little donation box. So if you wanted to help with like the care of this, clearly I didn't add any money, okay, but it was like, and I remember writing this post and being like, we have to dismantle these so-called heroes, right? Like, we have to dismantle this whole thing that is honoring these people. And I had an Indigenous person challenge me and be like, but why are we still waving this flag that colonized? Okay? And I was like, you know, actually, I don't have a comeback for that. I throw it away, start over, because this flag does not signify the same thing the American flag now for Indigenous people and for Black people. Honestly, I'm like, is there that much of a difference in this moment? I feel the same way when I see a bunch of American flags. I have a crisis. Like, I don't know what I'm going to get into here. So I hear that. Also, I just wanted to say too, for those of you who don't know, there was a city council meeting, a Lansing city council meeting last night that Ozay and I both attended. to talk about defunding the police and to ask our city council members to do that. And so we have a section of our website. You can get to it by using bit.ly defund 12. It's capital D, defund 12. And we have templates on there on how to write letters. We have infographics. We have statistics about how sexual violence in terms of police violence intersects with this moment. So I just wanted to check in about that so that you all know what we're talking about. Yes, that's what I mean to say. I'm tired, y'all. It's been a week.
Yeah, you deserve every ounce of shut eye you can get, because you've been going. You've been working. We appreciate it too. We appreciate your work.
You.
Yeah, it's just something like, I was thinking about a couple of days ago. I don't know why I say a couple of days when I really mean like months ago. Like a couple of days ago, it's really months ago when I picked up a packet at my kid's school and drove through the American flag neighborhood. Like, why am I feeling some kind of way about this? Right? What are you trying to say? Like, what do you mean by this? And it is this whole making America great again. It was like, well, it was never. It was never great for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? And the communities that we represent and that we're speaking out for and rallying together with, the communities that like did not have the same kind of experience in this country as you think it is. You know what I'm saying? Like it is part of the system. Unless we're talking about dismantling the system and changing the system entirely, it's like it's really hard. Nationalism is almost impossible for people who have not experienced being white in America or benefiting from the privileges of just accepting it for how it is and pushing it on. If you don't come, if you want to fight it, if you want to fight our history textbooks and the way they don't paint the whole picture and they omit pieces that like reflect the negative context for America, or they omit pieces that make America look bad, or that would jeopardize nationalism in some way, shape, or form. Which that's so much of that is just left out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and for what? So that we can just again eat hot dogs and blow up fireworks and kumbaya and still be having black men killed in the street because they fit the description. And it's like, and not addressing all of that. It's like, it's crazy talking to people. It's like, I just want everybody to get along. It's like, I feel you, but we can't get along if the wound is bleeding and you keep on trying to put band-aids on it and not just give it the attention and the surgery it needs.
After salt, like you throw salt in it and then you put salt on it and then you rip the band-aid off and you put more salt in it. It's like how, I was talking, I did a video with Tabitha Kaguri. She runs an organization called the EDGA Foundation where she works with survivors in rural Uganda. I was like, we can't heal if we're constantly under attack. Like Black people can't enter into a sense of peace because we have to be at peace to find unity. You know what I mean? Like we can't get to unity because any sense of peace that I have around this issue of white supremacy is a false peace because it still exists in every industry. So even if we fixed, I don't know, let's just pick an industry. Even if we fixed food service, right? Let's just say food service was like they challenged and betrayed white supremacy and now it is perfect. I still got to worry about healthcare. I got to worry about getting a loan. I got to worry about like the police. Like there's all of these spaces that are still, even if we had one perfect system, which we do not, like it's still everywhere. It's pervasive. So I'm like, how could we ever feel healed and whole enough to enter into right relationship with our country and feel any sense of unity when we know that if something goes down, not only are we more likely to be impacted by it, but we have people who would literally physically throw us on the train tracks. Who's got to go? Black people got to go. And I'm just like, wait, how am I supposed to feel any sense of unity for that? So
it's one of those things where it's like, think what you want. Like it got to the point where it's like on Facebook, it's like, I've been pretty quiet because like I just do not have the time or energy to try to argue with you about this. This is like basic math. A friend of mine, you know, he posted um he did a talk, homeboy mining propaganda, and he did this talk of like 2 and 2 is 4, you know, in regards to the rioting, right? So he's like, you can't the rioting is 4. Like that's the outcome of 2 and 2, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you get
Mm-hmm.
that. But 4 cannot change the fact it's 4. 2 and 2 has to take into consideration what it wants to do different to get a different equation,
Mm.
to get a different, to give different like outcome, right? So
Right.
it's like 2 and 2 equals 4. It will always equal 4, and 4 can't do nothing about that being 4. You know, when you oppress people, you
That's
suppress
so
people,
good.
you build a
Yeah.
system where folks literally feel like, skip it. Here we
Yeah.
go. It's not fair anyway. If I'm gonna die, I might as well die in some J's, young and having fun, because I don't know if I'm gonna make it to
Mm-hmm.
25 in this situation where nobody cares about me. The resources aren't there. I tried to get a job. They didn't give me a job. They did that, and they're blaming my mom, blaming my dad, or lack thereof, and they're blaming my situation. F it. I'm getting these
Mm-hmm.
J's, and middle finger to all of y'all. And I mean, that kind of I always say, like, hopelessness breeds recklessness in the realest way, you know, where there is no
Mm-hmm.
hope. And when you really, really, really feel like your back is against the wall, it's like, you know what? F it. Forget
Well,
it.
and Brian Stevenson from the Equality Justice Initiative, is that what it is? Equal Justice Initiative. So that's the man who the movie Mercy or Just Mercy is made out of. At
Mm,
the end of the movie, in his statement, he says that hopelessness is the opposite of justice. So I think that it's really interesting that you say hopelessness leads to recklessness, because hopelessness is the opposite of justice in his mind. So to me, I'm like, yeah, that all connects, right? Like
mm-hmm,
recklessness is due to injustice. Like we have
mm-hmm,
people who are just trying to survive, and we don't have mental health care. We don't have food. Like we're not even, when we talk about defund the police, sometimes when I'm challenged by the conversation about the things that we're asking for in terms of what can be funded, because
mm-hmm,
in Michigan, we still have a huge percentage of children who lack basic food access. They,
mm-hmm,
so they're not going to go and get mentored if they can't eat. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I understand that we're also asking for the things we're asking for are going to be rooted in our own privileges. And
right.
so for me, even myself, I'm like, when for my expanding and understanding and my learning, I'm like, okay, but what do we really, really need? Like we
Mm-hmm,
really need for food not to be connected to the school system. We saw that with COVID, and we know that the
mm-hmm,
school is going to be challenged to come back. So we need children to be able to eat. We need for families to have access to economic improvement and advancement, and that we are willing to invest in helping, not just to help them get jobs, but we have to create jobs.
mm-hmm,
Like we have to figure out these things that are going to support, and jobs need to be accessible. So
mm-hmm,
like, and I don't just mean to Black people who are neurotypical cisgender Black people, like they need to be accessible across the board for Black people with all types of intersecting identities. And
mm-hmm,
so I'm like, we also have to be careful in this moment that what we're asking for is also something that Black people can access.
mm-hmm,
I feel like in some ways, this is something that I haven't even yet figured out, right? Like when I'm thinking about where does that money go though? How do we make sure that kids have food, clean water, that they're not homeless? Some of these very basic things that aren't necessarily like their community programs. When we say community programs, I've heard a lot of words around mentorship or
mm-hmm,
parks or things like. But I'm like, we don't even have good. I love you, Kata, but like we don't even have good public transportation. It's really
mm-hmm.
hard to have a job if you can't get to a place in less than an hour in your own
Right,
city.
right,
So, I mean, I
right.
feel like there's so many, even just basic things that that we don't have, that we have to do before we can get to anything fancy, like,
Right. 100%. 100%. Because like we've been when you feel overwhelmed by the fact that the system will never truly fully support you, you start we just go to our corners and figure out survival in our own spaces. And very seldom in our community does that look like, let's figure out survival together, folks. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's really easy for even our own community for us to look at each other as, you know, being in the way, getting mine. You know what I'm saying? Like competition is real, you know? And you hear it a lot just working with youth, like, you know, status competition, you know, like there's these certain things that the system has created even in our own communities where it's like unifying and uniting is difficult because the system has created something to perpetuate this division that makes us vulnerable and most susceptible to reasons why they justify the policing, reason why they justify this, that, and the third. And they can say, well, look at, you know, stop burning your stuff down and we wouldn't have to just do right and we wouldn't have to show up. Just to, it's like you're not even talking about the reasons why we're out here like hustling and the reasons why we're out here in survival mode. Right. You know what I'm saying? Talk about that. And it's going to take some work to get to a place where, yeah, we're speaking the same language because we know our basic needs are met. And we know that we're, you know, there is intentional efforts to healing our community. And it's just deep, Tashmica. It's deep. It's a deep scenario where it's like, it does require so much. It requires the resources to make it happen. It also requires buy-in from our community. It requires like folks like, yo, we have to do this work regardless of the immediate return, and not seeing the immediate return right now. It has to be done to start undoing the years. I mean, I'll be real. I have considered leaving the country. I straight up, because the idea
I'm like,
seems so daunting.
Now everything's virtual, so I could probably run this organization from Canada. Like, where can I go? My kids are gonna. I mean, not that Canada doesn't have issues with racial justice because they do, but you know, I definitely have also thought, like, what is it going to look like if Trump gets elected again? How are my children going to be safe here? I mean, but we don't even have to think nationally. I mean, think about, you know, last night's city council meeting when our mayor recommended he was offering a $100,000 anti-racism and equity fund out of a budget of 7-point-something million. That's the police budget, not the city budget. That's the police budget is 7-some million, and this money was going to come out of the police budget. And I was just like, okay, first of all, that's disrespectful.
On all levels.
On so many levels. But also, it's, you know, a lot of people will say this, like, it starts in your own community. Like, if we have a mayor who's making recommendations like this, there's also a level of protection that you cannot expect in your own community, right? Like, if your own leadership in your own city, in your own state is not willing to protect you, then, like, whatever, you know, like the national stuff, yes, that is definitely going to impact us, but there's no like secondary level of support, you know, when when those are the recommendations that are coming out of your own local government.
I've been loving this group that we're meeting with regularly with Sarah Anthony and folks, and it's like, it feels like definitely the beginning stages of like really coming together, like on all fronts, like bringing as many folks together as possible, many Black folks together as possible, Black leaders in our community as possible, together to begin this work, you know, because we're in an important time in history, you know, and we all do have to come out from our corners of survival mode, you know, to come together for this if we stand a chance. And when I say about like the idea of leaving the country, it's just like, there's a part of me that like is fearful that it'll never happen. You know what I'm saying? And that's a horrible attitude. But, you know, when you're used to around every corner, there's like a trap. There's some way they're co-opting our movements and killing making martyrs out of our leaders. And, you know what I'm saying? Like that, it just does something to you. We're like, yo, is America just doomed? Like, for real? Like, is
Well,
America
it's
just for real about to
paranoid.
just, you
Sorry,
know?
go ahead.
No, I'm just rambling
We're
now,
both
but it's the
ranting.
feeling though. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I think it's pragmatic. I sometimes feel like I'm pessimistic, and I always have friends who are like, it's not pessimistic, it's pessimistic, it's pragmatic, because
Mm,
you have the historical context to understand. Like, if you didn't know history, which I believe is one of the functions of white supremacy, is disconnecting us from our history, right? I mean, that's why our
mm-hmm.
school books don't teach us about Black history. And so, like, if we don't know the context of history, I think it's easier to be hopeful, right? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there, it's wrong. So of course they're going to fix it. And then you find out that that's, even when they know it's wrong, it's not in their best interest to fix it. So then they're not going to fix it. And
Right.
so it feels like, uh, do I want to be hopeful? Sure. I wouldn't be doing this work if I didn't think I was making some kind of incremental change that's going to eventually build something valuable for, I mean, at least for my children.
Absolutely.
But do I think it's going to happen in my lifetime? Mm, I don't know.
One can only hope. Like,
I think
but
some things will happen in my lifetime, but
yeah.
I'm also really concerned about how after every civil rights movement, there is a snapback of violence. And
Mm-hmm.
we are seeing that. We are seeing state sanctioned violence on the rise. We're seeing law enforcement pulling off and quitting, like, not just like whatever, you quit your job, that just helps us defund the police. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
resigning actually helps the movement. You're
Mm-hmm.
now a part of the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
But literally pulling off and not responding to calls, like putting people in danger because they cannot abuse Black people with, and because they don't want to take accountability for that behavior. And so,
Right.
like, that's the thing that, I said at the beginning of this with COVID that my concern, the thing that is really heavy on my heart more than anything else, is that we some of us are not going to survive this season. And we have
Mm-hmm.
already seen that. We have already seen Rayshon Brooks, we have seen Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and we're seeing more and more names every day. And then we've also got these stories of people being lynched across the country. And I was worried about that because history again tells us that when we fight, there are losses, and not losses as in, like, I might lose my job. Like, people are actually dying. And so I think that's why I also struggle with some of the performative behaviors of our leadership, right? Like, and even being asked, like, what do I say? How do I, what do I do as a white ally? And I'm like, you're gonna take risks, because guess what? You might lose a job. You might say a thing wrong, and you might lose your job. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But what you lose is nowhere near what we have been risking in life and limb in the past 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like it's okay for people to be asking me what they should be doing. If you're not equipped, it might be time to step aside and find somebody who is,
That's real.
because we don't have time. We are not, this is a time sensitive season, people.
Right. Right. We have a window and we need to
We
get
have a
on, and we
window.
don't have the
We gotta
time to be
move.
bringing everybody up to speed. Like, the writing's on the wall. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we got video now.
I
We have
know.
video of these occurrences. There's footage. There is, inform me. So, I mean, I've been pointing people to, White Supremacy and Me,
Mhm,
such a great book. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Even me reading it, because you talked about
mhm,
earlier in the conversation, just like, the white supremacy that has conditioned us, even, in terms of
mhm,
like, well, this is how I have to navigate and move to be able to get here. And it's in support in utilizing, you know uh the white supremacy gear
mhm.
unconsciously, but yeah, I feel like I'm not leaving, but so I'm not moving out the country. I'm not, but I
Not
can't I
yet,
can't help but to
America.
really, yeah, right. But but it's just so real right now. You know, we need unity. We need strong leadership. We need folks speaking up. We need allies. You know, I will say this to the folks who do claim to be allies and have done the work and are, educating themselves. It's appreciated for real. You know what I'm saying? It is. It's what did Paulo Freire say, revolution is a collaborative effort. You know, it is not one group of people getting whole. You know, humanizing people or a group of people requires everyone doing the work.
Yep.
You know, so
Everyone's
as much
showing
buy-in
up.
as possible. You know, and that's, I will say, I appreciate those who have showed up on the real for real. You know,
And they have really
but
showed up.
we got to do more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the city council meeting was mostly allies. I feel like there were
Sounded
so
like
many.
I
Listen,
didn't
no,
see
I knew
faces,
a
but
bunch of them. Okay, I'm not
person.
just profiling.
I think that person's white and they are pissed, and I like it. Get mad.
No, I was like, okay, all right, do it. You say it. Yes, yes. There were so many times I was hitting that little clap button on my little Zoom. I don't even know if anybody could see it. I just was like, clap.
Give all the smoke. Give them all the smoke.
Give it to them.
Cloud of smoke. Put it on.
They asked for it. They needed that smoke.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I definitely, I appreciate the fervor. And I hope that people consistently stick with it, because the only way that people are going to get to the place where they have the capacity to respond to these movements is if they are consistently doing the work over time. Because revolution is also not a one-time act, right? Isn't that what Audre Lorde says? Revolution is ongoing. It takes years. It is a daily practice. It is hourly. So we have to always be in it, and we have to always be looking at ways to investigate our complicity, because internalized white supremacy, I don't want to say this in mixed company, but that's not only for white people.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, if you figure out the hack to survive,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? If survival equals complicit behavior,
sometimes,
hey, it's happened. I'm guilty. I think everybody in the room be like, hell, I'm guilty of in one degree or another, just trying
whether
to
I know it or
survive.
not. And we are all investigating it. And I think we also have to recognize that white supremacy includes ableism, includes homophobia, transphobia, sexism, Christian supremacy. Like, these are all things that are underneath the mantle of white supremacy. And that requires a lot of unlearning too, right? So like, while I'm asking my white ally friends to do their work, I'm reading my own work on trying to investigate and interrogate and remove any inclination that I have around ableism or transphobia and just in all of those phobias and isms, because I also want to show up for my counterparts, anybody who's being marginalized. Because Fannie Lou Hamer, yes, said we're not free unless we're all free. Right. And so if I'm invested in my freedom, that means I'm invested in your freedom. And so I want everybody to be liberated. I'm not just here for Black people. I mean, I am, but I'm also here. I'm here for all the Black people, which means I'm here for trans people. I'm here for Black people with disabilities, deaf Black people. Like, we are all, that's why I was also trying to get people to understand too around defund the police and investing in our community. I'm like, y'all, this serves you. Like, if life is just for Black people, our community will be transformed. Like, you don't have to cut your nose off to spite your face. Right. It will make our entire community so different and so beautiful and so generative and robust and creative. I mean, there's so much genius that we're losing because we don't invest in humans. And so I'm just like, come on, people, like, do it for yourself. Like, if you can't do it for me, do it for yourself.
Do it for you. Exactly. Activate that motivation.
Yeah,
do it for you.
Do it for you.
Win. All
You're gonna like it. I promise. You're gonna like it.
It just requires a lot of discomfort and being awake. Like not cuddling up on the couch and just like when comfort is God. You know what I'm saying? We're horrible. You know what I'm saying? We do horrible things.
That's a whole word. That's a whole sermon.
Like, yeah, I just want to be comfortable, you know, forget all this extra, this, that, and third. It's like, unfortunately, that is the main motivation of this whole white supremacist, the white supremacy that is moving this, that is the motor to our country, is that like there's a sense of like comfort that comes from being complicit and being asleep and just saying it's just how it is, how it is. You make do with what you got and you just figure it out. And hey,
Yeah.
you know,
No drama.
yeah, sure, you're scared when the police pull up behind you because you have to answer them this way, put your hands on the dashboard this way. Sure, your white counterparts don't have to do that. And let's not worry about why. It's just how it is. So learn how to, I was told how to navigate the system. You know, like my pops taught me like how to survive. You know what I mean? It wasn't until later you learn how to resist and to demand better. You know what I'm saying? And that's something you have to learn. But early on, it was survival. You know what I'm saying? It was like, what parent doesn't want that for their child? You know, I just want you to live, you know? But in the midst of that, prepared to be able to stand up and fight too, you know? So I'm thankful for it. And hopefully, you know, people don't get weary in the well-doing here, because it's not going to be fixed overnight. It's not going to be fixed by a revised budget. It's not going to be fixed with us getting 20%. You know, it's not going to be fixed by, you know, the first community center or a few new community centers with this budget opening up for our community. It's not going to be fixed by our budgets, our personal budgets with our organizations reflecting care and Black Lives Matter by throwing us dollars to do the work. That's not going to fix it all. It's like we got work to do, and you got to be in for the long haul, you know, to see it go beyond us. I don't know if in one of our early council sessions where you were like, you know, like putting me up on what it means to be an executive director for a Lansing nonprofit organization. But I think one of the things was that you said, I remember, was like, you want this work to outlast you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are working your way out of a position. Like, if it's meaningful work, it has to continue. It has to go beyond your lifespan and be around 200 years. Like, thinking through that, like, wow, an organization that's worth running is something that will be around for 150, 200 years, hopefully. That's deep. So that means I got to be doing the work to prepare the one to take the torch from me to keep running. And that's what this is. This is a marathon, you know, and we want to see our communities whole. We want to see folks who we want to be our humanity restored. We got work to do, because this country has done a serious job at denying us that, you know. So here we go.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I'm like, oh, I did say that.
You said a lot of great things you probably don't remember, but I'm like, oh,
it's true though. It's true though. I mean, you know, I don't see my work as what's happening right now. I see my work as what happens after I'm dead. Right. So like, what is the legacy that I'm leaving behind? What my children are doing things, y'all. I don't know what's going on.
No, that's right.
I don't know. I'm not responsible for that right now. But you know, like my legacy is what I'm always thinking about, because I think about what, you know, everybody knows that I'm a survivor of childhood rape and incest. So I think a lot about legacy, because my father's legacy was not supposed to be what my legacy is today. Right. So like when he was harming me, my legacy could have looked very differently, honestly. I mean, trauma manifests in a lot of different ways. And so I think about how that legacy is transformed in me and what that means for my children and what that means for my community and what it means to be a good elder. Like, what does it mean to pour good things into youth and be a good elder, and to know when to step aside and be like, okay, I've done the thing. I've watered the plants. So go ahead, go bear your fruit. Go get your fruit. Go do it.
Hang the bacon on the clothesline and let's just see what happens.
On the clothesline. Okay,
if that's how you want to do it. Let's get the jerky going.
No, my child decided they were going to make They were going to make beef jerky. And they explained to me last night that they were going to do this. I posted on my personal Facebook page. And there is a slice of bacon, salted, hanging from a clothesline by a chip clip. So,
Hell hey, you got to figure it out.
yeah, listen, they're trying stuff. I'm here to let them try. I will not let them eat it. No, for real.
You're not going to try it?
Listen, I'm not going to let them eat it. Everybody calm down. I'm not going to let them eat it. We're doing an experiment today. Actually, I wonder if it's even still there because I'm convinced that we're going to have a hawk fly through. Oh, it's actually gone. Maybe my kid took it. I don't know what happened. I'll give you a report back, Facebook, when I figure out what happened.
I'm checking. I want to see how it turns out because it might be a hack. It might be a bad case of food poisoning. But
listen, get ready for the apocalypse because we're making bacon on the clothesline.
Right.
No.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like there is that is part of our role as the adults in this situation. Because the other thing I was thinking about is, we have our Sisters in Strength program. Our cohort ends tomorrow. Actually, we're having a celebration for our sisters who are in that program. And we are, when we were thinking about creating that program, I said that I believe that youth are the future of the movement, right? And so like in the sexual violence movement, there's this idea that, or sometimes there are people who think that like survivors shouldn't necessarily be leading because they pathologize survivors, right? Like we're too emotional, we'll get triggered, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But if I'm fostering a movement that's survivor-led, that means that I have to pour into survivors who are youth now so that when they are ready to join the movement, they have far more in terms of their capacity and resources because they've been loved on and supported with information and they've been given skills, right? So that's part of the thing that we've been doing with our youth, but also it also requires joy and like how we function as joyful people and protecting them in this moment in history, right? Because we can't all wake up and be organizers. Like I've been doing this thing. It's the Black History Boot Camp. It's on Spotify. It's been sponsored by, there's an organization called Girl Trek. So they would do a podcast. It's 30 to 40 minutes every day for 21 days. And every day it's another Black woman in history. And it's amazing. So there's these two women who talk about it, their goal for Girl Trek. So everybody go check them out. They don't know me. I wish they knew me. So if you know them, tell them to call me. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
I listen to it every morning on my walk. And one of the things that they were talking about today is how like our babies deserve our shelter in this moment so they can experience joy. Like that as elders, it's actually our responsibility to bear the weight of this moment. And we want them to know their history and participate in at least a little bit of it, right? Because we don't want our kids to not be able to be a part of this in this time because they're seeing it anyway. But also one of the important roles for us as elders is to protect their joy so that they have capacity in the future. Yeah. So when we talk about, teen-led participation in some of these things, I was like, I wanted to like, we want to push our youth to the front and center and hear their voices and have them participate. And then there's a part of me that's like, actually, I don't know. I don't know that I want them to be a part of this moment because it's hurtful for me to see how white leaders are responding. It's hurtful for me to see internalized white supremacy in Black leaders and other leaders of color across the country who are doing things not in service of justice. And I'm like, how do we strike that balance between, yes, this is history, and many kids want to be involved, while also being like, actually, your job right now is to be as much in your joy as you can be, so that when we're done and you're ready to take this on, you have more capacity because you've been protected and you've been sheltered and you've been given skills and you've been given the information that white supremacy wants to keep away from you. So that's something I've been thinking about for our little ones that we're working with.
No, that's so good. That's so good. Because at the end of the day, it's like, if when it's go time, and we need to be there. But what happens if we achieve what we're looking for? You know what I'm saying? And we
Mhm.
don't know how to rest, and we don't know how to, come down and not have this crisis to deal
Mhm.
with. I wrestle with that. Like I like putting out fires. I like to have something to go do. I like that,
Mhm.
but resting is hard for me, and it's
Mhm.
almost like, if you work your way out of a job, say, we just work our way to a better society. And it's, have we been able to also activate the other part of our humanity? It's not just
Mhm.
basic needs and like feeling safe and protected and taken care of, but the other part of like living and being, you know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
enjoying, um, that's a real thing. It is a hard balance to strike with young ones, because you want them to understand the reality of it all early, so that
Yeah.
they can have they don't become complicit, and they don't
Mhm.
have empathy, and they don't understand how to be an ally, or they don't understand what it means to be a good ancestor, or they don't understand
Mhm.
what it means to to um, to be about something, other than just having fun, but also protecting that joy in youth is important too. So when we're doing classes and we start getting real academic and we're talking about, so this song about this, and Public Enemy about this, and
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, that's cool. Just trying to dance and have fun. It's like, that's fair too. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
And
Let's
that's
do that. That's
yeah.
important. We need that. We need to
I would,
celebrate. That's a part of us.
yes, and also I'm like the whole point of liberation is that we survive to see it. And so
Yeah.
like we have
And
to
the dance and sing, and yeah, exactly.
yeah, we have to live into our freedom, and like one of the people on this they talked about Nina Simone on like day 5 or
Mm-hmm.
day 6, and they were talking about how she was like living into her freedom, and that when she released the song Mississippi Goddamn uh, during the
Mm-hmm.
and she was experiencing some like commercial success, and she was like, this is it, it's over, I'm going to release this song. And it was after it was an intense moment in history. It was after the 3 little girls died
Mm-hmm.
at the church, and she was like, I have to do this thing. And then from that moment forward, she, as was lifted up as a civil rights icon, because she really pushed into um, doing that work. But she was like really celebrating that, freedom. Like we
Mm-hmm.
need to be free. And so I want our youth to feel free, and I want them to have spaces where they can just be themselves, and not, and to have space where they're centered.
Mm-hmm.
And their experiences are validated, because that's the other thing
Mm-hmm.
that happens in this community with our Black youth, is that when they talk about racism, when they talk about being discriminated against, when they talk about the harms that they experience because of the institutions that they're involved with, they get shut down, and they get
Mm-hmm.
told to do the thing, right, to just do what they need to do to get by in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also really harmful. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anywho, we are almost out of time.
And I was looking at my battery power is like 3%. I was about to say, is it tacky for me to run and grab my charger in the middle of this?
The
But
revolution
no, it's
is running out of battery, y'all. We gotta go. We have to rest.
no, but no, this is, man, it's so good. And Tashmica, thank you for the resource you are to this community, to me personally, with our organization. I mean, like, there would be no All the Above Hip Hop Academy if you didn't take the time to like say, you could do this, and here's how, So I appreciate that, and just always creating space for us to be at the table for the discussions, to learn from each other, and to like, you're really really an asset to our community, for real, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate you
onward,
too.
we keep it
Yeah,
up, we keep going.
we are. Yeah, we're in it. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad you could be here. Everybody, like I said, go check out All the Above Hip Hop. Give them your coins. If you didn't give money on Juneteenth, I'm not, I mean, maybe you didn't have money, but if you did and you haven't given, Ozay would be, and All the Above Hip Hop would be a great place to give.
Me?
So
Us?
Oh, I
No
mean,
dollars?
in particular, there's Venmo and Cash App as well. But you could also, I'm just kidding. All right, everybody, you take care. Please follow us. You can all these videos go up on YouTube afterwards, so you can share them, subscribe to our YouTube account, and yeah, stay in the revolution with us. It's not a one-time thing. This is for life. So,
It's more live.
thank you, everybody. Bye.
All right. Peace, y'all.